Hello. Seeing as this is the last episode of the season, I figure I'd give you a backstory about how Cartoon Breakdown came about. Well, you see, April 7th, 1980, I was born. And then it was today. Did I miss anything?
Nah, I don't think you did.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cartoon Breakdown. I'm your host, the Animator. Yeah, you heard that right in the beginning. I'm going to make this the last episode of Cartoon Breakdown for the season. And yes, I'm going to make it about Cartoon Breakdown itself. I'm doing this because I feel like to be a good artist, you have to take stock of where you came from and just what you've learned, and hopefully push towards getting something better in the future. I was hoping that at the end of each season of Cartoon Breakdown, I can show a great deal of improvement with each season. So yeah, technically this season only had 22 episodes, even though this is episode 23. You don't have to count it if you don't want to, and I wouldn't blame you for it. But let's get right into it. About the show. Of course, if you've been watching my show, you know exactly what Cartoon Breakdown is about. It's a show that's going to be talking about our favorite cartoons, and figure out where they came from, how they came to be, where they went, or in some cases, where they are and where they're going. That was always the idea behind Cartoon Breakdown. And it's so much more because I get to tell the stories that never get told. Production. Cartoon Breakdown comes from a place that is nearest and dearest to my heart. Of course, I'm talking about animation, most specifically 2D animation. In fact, for years I've wanted to produce a show on the internet about cartoons. I was inspired by the likes of The Nostalgia Critic, Linkara, Mars Girl, and many more. I wanted to create a show that was centered around something that I'm passionate about, and still have the ability to be unique, as I felt the internet was full of critics, and so I wanted to create something that was different. I came up with several ideas, making my show about a pirate reviewing cartoons, but then I came up with the idea about talking about animation contributors such as Ralph Bashki and Tom Bancroft. However, I didn't have access to the internet, nor did I have access to any place that would have that type of information that I needed in order to create the show. It remained a dream for years until I'd forgotten about it, and then one day I remember coming up with the idea. The idea I'm talking about, of course, is not Cartoon Breakdown, but I wanted to watch the first episode, or should I say the pilot, of Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers. I remember looking on YouTube for all the episodes so that way I can at least watch the show, as I haven't seen it in years. It was doubtful as to whether or not I was going to be able to watch the show because it wasn't exactly readily available on television anymore. I had the internet back, and so I came up with the idea of watching it. However, imagine my surprise when I was looking for the first episode, and it was something about Dale becoming a pirate. This didn't exactly seem right to me, as I could have sworn I remember seeing Chip and Dale getting the rest of the crew together and finding Monterey Jack, and then finding Gadget in some sort of a workshop. I remember it was a movie, and it was longer than a half-hour episode. I didn't know what was going on, and this is something I couldn't figure out, so I went to the internet and researched. The more I researched, the more I figured out there was more to the show than I had originally thought. I found out about the backstory about how Chip and Dale was originally going to be a rescuers television show, and that they had an entirely different set of characters, with the exception of Gadget, of course. There was a beta episode, or should I say a beta idea as to where the show came from, and this got me thinking. This is something that happens to a lot of television shows more often than not. The shows they come out with and what we watch as children aren't usually where the shows came from and what the original ideas were. There's always retooling by companies who want to make the show better so they can make money or profits from toys. Or maybe that they come up with a better idea after they pitched it with the company. These are the things that I'd like to be able to find out about, and the stories that I wanted to tell that I think are fascinating. I've never heard of such things, and it's never crossed my mind until I was trying to find the 2-hour pilot for Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. This is where Cartoon Breakdown got its initial start. It was the spark that started it all. However, this is something that would have to be put on hold as my computers both crashed on me and gave me the blue screen of death. There was no way for me to work on this at home, and in order for me to actually get the show out, I would have to commute every day to the Art Institute where I got my degree in animation, which was increasingly hard to get into as the Institute was pushing alumni out for being able to attend classes. So Cartoon Breakdown was on hold indefinitely, as I didn't have a computer to work with. In 2014, I got a job working as a sign waver as I dressed up like the Statue of Liberty standing on the street corner telling people about Liberty Tax. It was a fun job, and all I had to do was sit there, hold a sign, dancing while listening to music, and getting people's attention and handing out flyers. It wasn't too hot, as this was happening at around February all the way to the first half of April. Eventually, I was able to get a motorized bicycle which had a gas power engine as well as pedals. It was the worst decision I ever made. I thought it was going to be a bike that was going to help me out and be able to get around town. However, it would only go for a couple of miles before slowing down so much that I could walk faster. That got worse as time went on, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I got frustrated and threw it up on Craigslist. However, I didn't ask for $300 that I paid for it. I asked if somebody had a computer or $300 in order to come pick it up. This worked out as a nice man came by with his computer that he had been thinking about getting rid of. He handed me the computer and I gave him my bike for a trade-off. It was very beneficial to us both as he restores bikes like that for a hobby, and I had a new computer that I could get Cartoon Breakdown back on track. This was around the summer of 2014, and I started working on getting animation done for the first episode of Cartoon Breakdown. And so this is where the first episode would have come out months after I got my computer, and I worked on all the animation and in-betweens and everything that I needed in order to get the show done. If you notice what I'm talking about, I'm actually saying the original concept for Cartoon Breakdown was going to be an animated version of me. I was going to be more fully animated rather than what you see before you. I have the whole episode done and ready to go. However, unfortunately, I didn't have a good copy of After Effects and it wouldn't render out in HD. But I did get the episode rendered out for everyone to watch. I showed it to my family and my friends, especially one of my good friends who told me the show was good, however, there was a lot wrong with it, and I'd have to agree with him. The audio wasn't right, and I recorded the first part before my computer had completely self-destructed, and then the second part and third parts were all jumbled together. I was working with the audio and my microphone to make a much better audio recording. This was the first time I had actually come up with the idea of making Cartoon Breakdown and the alpha episode as it were, and I might upload it to the channel sometime, so keep an eye out for that. My friend's nitpick of everything that was wrong made me think long and hard about what I was doing, so I got to work redesigning the episode, and unfortunately, I also got sidetracked with a lot of other things, most notably video games and hanging out with my family. It wouldn't be until summer of 2017 that I would continue to work on Cartoon Breakdown and be as dedicated as I am today. I remember getting a text from either Facebook or YouTube asking me about Cartoon Breakdown and if the YouTube channel and the Facebook page were linked. They were also inquiring as to whether or not I was going to do anything with it, as I've been sitting on the channel since 2014. Fearing that they were going to take my channel away, I know it's a stupid idea, but that lit a fire under my butt one in which I have never let die. I came up with the idea of going from keyframe to keyframe rather than having a fully animated show, mostly from my favorite reviewers for My Little Pony, people like I Love Kim Possible and Silverquill. They inspired me in the way that they were doing their reviews and how they got their avatars going from key pose to key pose, rather than having a fluid animation. And so I retooled the first episode of Cartoon Breakdown and re-recorded it off of my original script in August of 2017. And I worked all the way through September of 2017 on the first 4 episodes of Cartoon Breakdown. As the show began, I had my first episode uploaded in September, and that's when I knew I had to keep it going. I'm fairly confident you guys know about how the show looked when it first came out. It was a jumbled mess, and looking back at it, I see I had no idea. It had no structure, and I was making it up on the fly as I was going along. Not about the information, but how I presented it. And this is something that I found as being a big problem as the series was going on. I had a buffer that I could use, 4 episodes in total, before I would run out of episodes and be late. This happened in December of 2017. I was supposed to have the last episode out before Christmas break, at the very least ready to upload before November was over with. But as things went on, I actually had to work on episode 18 while I was out in Oklahoma with my family celebrating the holidays. I did get the episode out on time in order for you to be able to watch it before Christmas of that year. It wasn't until sometime at around February that I got the idea of creating title cards that would go between each of the segments and make my show have structure. Now, as for the backgrounds, I created that for going behind the artwork so that way it wasn't just a slideshow that you were watching. I got the idea from Gem and the Holograms because I thought it would look really cool and it would be something that could make Cartoon Breakdown better. Voice cast and characters. What other voices are there other than myself? Seriously. I did have my mom, my dad, and his wife do some recordings for Gem and the Hologram episode, but for the most part, all the voices are done by me. What a shock. I'd like to be able to get other people to do other voices for me, however, I don't have money to pay them and I don't want to ask if I can't pay. And no, exposure is not a viable way of payment. After all, as of this recording, I only have 39 subscribers to the channel, and so that's not going to do much for exposure. But I do thank every one of you for having subscribed to this channel because it makes me feel so giddy that you guys actually care about what I say. Broadcast history. The first episode of Cartoon Breakdown was uploaded to this channel September 5th, 2017. And if this episode makes it on time, the last episode of Season 1 will have been uploaded July 17th, 2018, making the total for the series 23 episodes. I chose 23 because it's a nice round figure, and that's usually how many episodes there are for a season of a cartoon show. I can tell you with the utmost certainty that this has been a very interesting ride doing this show. I went in blind, having researched as much as I can, but it doesn't prepare you for everything that you learn on your journey as you're doing a YouTube show. That's something you get with experience. As I stated before, I uploaded the first episode in September, but I actually uploaded it on the 5th because I figured that's how it was done. It wasn't until 3 months later that I found out you could upload the episodes whenever it was finished and have them scheduled to go out live. That was the most interesting thing I found out about YouTube, and it's extremely helpful. My background for the artwork has become more and more elaborate as I fit them for each show. In fact, the most elaborate one I did was for the South Park episode, where I had 3 different layers of snow coming down, and I could even change the weather for the background if I wanted to. But I suppose the biggest breakthrough of them all was when I found out that I could make HD video utilizing the software that I have. Yes, After Effects CS3, or at least the version I have, keeps telling me that I need to set the rendering output to 720 by 480 in order for it to render, which is not HD. In order for me to go HD, I had to render out the whole episode as JPEG or TIFF sequences. then take those sequences into Premiere and render out the videos as HD video utilizing Premiere's engine for rendering. Now I have at least 2 new shows that are on this channel that I didn't have originally. There's animated highlights and talking trailers, both of which are easy for me to do and capable of helping me maintain my audience without having to sacrifice quality of the episodes of Cartoon Breakdown. Cartoon Breakdown has gotten more and more elaborate as time goes on, which is absolutely beautiful for me. I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy being able to look into the history of cartoons and be able to tell you things that blow my mind. This show started out as a fascinating trip for me, and it's even turned into a passion. I would do the show even if it meant nobody was watching. That's just how much I love learning about these things. I've gotten more of an appreciation for every cartoon that I've talked about. I've even started out hating South Park just because of the way the cartoon is. I still hate South Park, but I have more of an appreciation for Matt Stone and Trey Parker because of how much South Park is a passion project of theirs. And with every new cartoon I talk about, I learn something new that I didn't know about, and you're learning as I am. I hope to continue working on this show well into the future. Well, I was hoping that this episode was going to be at least 10 minutes long, but go figure, talking about myself, I'm like a well of knowledge, bottomless and full of water. That's going to do it for this episode of Cartoon Breakdown. Come join me next season, which I'm hoping to have started and finished before September. I'm going to have better things to show you, better key poses, of course, as well as a whole new look. I'm going to keep chugging and see where this takes me. As always, I'm the Animator, and this was Cartoon Breakdown.